Welcome to the County Manager's Report. I'm Lloyd Higuera, and with me is Douglas County Manager Larry Werner. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you, Lloyd.
And we're going to be talking about the October meetings of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. And the first meeting, Larry, that we'll get into is the Board of Commissioners meeting of October 6th. And at that meeting, commissioners did hear a presentation on the updated airport master plan for the Minden Tahoe Airport. And could you give us a little more detail on what the plan is all about?
To some extent, the plan itself is pretty massive. It essentially is the guide for the future on all the airport operations as far as the how they operate, weather conditions, future improvements, those sorts of things. Still keeping in mind the ordinance that limits the weight of the aircraft that come into the airport, but kind of laying out the future, instrument lighting, all those kinds of things. And it's a process just like our land use master plan, where we kind of take a look at the future and see what's needed and what should be improved at the airport. Identifies a lot of the operating procedures, so it really becomes a very nice guide. It's a fairly large document. I brought a piece of it.
So it is pretty thick.
Yeah, so it's not something we can probably summarize in a very short fashion, but again, it's basically the guide for the next 5 years on what activities, what capital improvements, what operational changes and stuff would be for the benefit of the airport and the community.
Is there a major item happening out there at the airport?
Other than the improvements that we talked about the last time, the fencing, the runways, the glider taxiways, those sorts of things, it's this plan that sets those kinds of things in motion. I didn't see anything in there of any major important. I think Bobby Thompson, who's the general manager, has done a lot with the current master plan that has taken care of a lot of things for the future. So I didn't see any particular big item out there. I was going to lay something on there, but it looks pretty nice, actually. So.
Great. Well, commissioners at that October 6th meeting also approved a settlement agreement dismissing the Jobs Peak Ranch Community Association's legal claims against Douglas County. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, I'll try to. It's a confusing issue. From what I understand, I went back and talked to the district attorney's office as well on this, is that the county got sued along with the developer of the Jobs Peak Ranch community over the condition that the water system was left in. It basically deteriorated to the point that the county had to step in and take over because it wasn't meeting state standards and a few other things. The homeowners association basically felt that the county and the developer had an obligation to provide them with a water system, and that was kind of the basis of their suit. It went through several stages, through the district court, through the Supreme Court, those kinds of things, and basically I think got to the point that it was recommended that they come up with some kind of a settlement. And that settlement was to actually, from the county standpoint, is to get compensation from the developer to help offset some of the costs that the county had seen there in doing the improvements that they were going to charge back to the homeowners to the homeowners through their water rates, and that compensation came in the form of a couple of lots that were part of the development that had a conservation easement on them. So we'll kind of combine these next two questions. And in turn, the county agreed to pay $10,000 toward the homeowners association to offset some of the rate that they had been paying to fix the water system. So it was kind of I guess kind of a wake-up call from the homeowners association that they were not happy with the way that they'd been left with this system, and that the county had some obligation in their mind to have assured that this didn't happen. So that was kind of the basis of the suit. The settlement then got the county, like I say, the two lots, which was your next question, and to modify the conservation easement on those two lots to provide for some building envelopes so that the county could sell those lots and recuperate some of the costs that would then go back into the system to offset the costs for repairs and maintenance and upgrades.
I see what you mean.
Issue, yes.
Very complicated. Yeah, the next question did relate to that, was commissioners approving a conservation easement that you mentioned between Douglas County and the Wass family and the Michael McAllister trusts to increase the amount and adjust the boundaries of property located in Sierra Country Estates.
Right, and like, what it did is the conservation easement covered these 2 lots that the county obtained in payment for for upgrading the water system, and as it existed, there couldn't be anything done with those lots, so the idea was to modify the boundaries of the conservation easement to the point that there could be a building actually constructed on the lot. And that was approved by the county commissioners. So we'll modify the boundary of the conservation easement, and then the county will put those 2 lots up for sale to see if they kind of get some value back from that.
Okay, well, I'm getting a headache, so I think
I hear you. Yeah.
I think we need to go on to the October 20th meeting of the Board of Commissioners. And at that meeting, that was up at Tahoe, commissioners approved elimination of the Assistant County Manager Chief Financial Officer classification. And then they approved a separate job description and separate classification for Assistant County Manager and Chief Financial Officer. So there'll be 2 people rather than 1 person?
Right. Ultimately, that would be the goal. I think the Board of County Commissioners was concerned that the amount of activity taking place in the county manager's office was getting to be a little bit overwhelming, and I can agree with that. There are times there that you just kind of don't know what is up. When they originally had created this position, it was during the day when things were pretty tight. The economy had gone down, and the idea was that if you combine these 2 positions, then that should be able to take care of both sides. Well, that wasn't really working very well. We really need a chief financial officer that can stay focused on the county's finances and those sorts of things. And then there needs to be a position there that can deal with a lot of the community issues that aren't getting dealt with to the extent they should be. So the approach is that we'll probably, in the near future, start filling the position of the chief financial officer. I had appointed Vicki Moore, who was in the finance department, to act as the interim finance director. And we're kind of evaluating what we really need for that position. And then as far as the assistant county manager, it's my contention that we should handle that through the regular budget process and see if we have the funding to take care of that, to fund these. There's a lot of push to get that position created, to get somebody in to kind of mentor them, because my contract comes up at the end of December next year. And the board would like to have somebody in there that can kind of learn the ropes and get started, and might be a pretty viable candidate for being county manager, when I leave. So, I think it's a good idea. It's just a matter of timing and budget and all the other issues that go along with new positions.
Well, the couple of previous county managers were assistant county managers. I mean, Holler and Brown and Mokrohiski.
Right.
And those all worked out pretty well.
They did.
And, because they had some background, with the county and were able to step in. And then when you bring people from outside, you never really know what you're going to get. It's
tough, and it's Douglas County is a tough organization to work with, just because of the complexity with the number of districts that the county has and the amount of activity that takes place all the time. It's a little different than my experience, like with Carson City, when it was one entity and you really could focus on just dealing with that one entity. But here we've got, 26 some separate governmental agencies within Douglas County, and it takes a lot of coordination and it takes a lot of time, and it's a necessary thing. And I'm concerned that at times we just don't give it enough weight to deal with these issues, and so it makes sense.
Okay. So you have a temporary financial officer in, and then you're looking maybe next year sometime to get a new assistant county manager?
Right. We'll probably start the process here in the next couple months. We're trying to take a look at the organization, see how we might structure it, if there's any changes we might make, and kind of get that done. And then obviously we're coming into budget season. So a little concern is bringing on somebody brand new in the middle of all that process, and then not only having to do the work itself, but then to kind of mentor or train somebody new coming in as to what we're doing. And we thought, well, maybe we ought to get further into the budget, past a lot of the base foundation work, and then look at bringing somebody in at that point. And I think the new board may also want to have a kind of a voice in who gets hired and who doesn't, that sort of thing. Even though it's a county manager's choice, it's foolish of the county manager to assume that the board doesn't have an interest. So.
Right. exactly. Okay, well, very good. So the wheels are turning on that.
Yes.
Commissioners also adopted at that meeting a resolution authorizing the purchase of the replacement of a county 911 dispatch console and associated equipment at a cost of $410,000.
Right, and the actual cost is around 740,000
Wow.
for the replacement. We're taking about 300 and some thousand out of the existing revenues that are collected by the 911 center through chargebacks to other agencies. And then this would be, the 410,000 would be an installment purchase for the balance of the equipment over a 5-year period, and that can be, I apologize, I think that maybe a 7-year period. And that can be then repaid by the revenues that we receive to that part of the organization, that they can pay that out over time. So it's kind of a financing arrangement more than anything else.
Okay, so how long will it take to get that new console in there?
Lloyd, I don't know for sure. I know we're going to try to get it purchased right away, and I think it's actually fairly rapid, because what we're really talking about are microcomputers, PCs
Right.
that run it, and so it's a matter of buying those, getting them in, and getting the software set up. So I don't think it's a long time frame. I'm just not exactly sure. Probably.
I would think it
36
would be a fast track item. You want to have 911 up
Yes,
full
yes.
power, you know.
Yeah, we're running now, but we're running where we're buying parts from eBay and a few other things, and that's not a good way to run it. So this will definitely bring us up to speed. We'll have better support on the equipment, and then we'll also come up with a mechanism that we have a replacement program, and so that we don't face this issue the way we did now.
Okay. One more item on that meeting of the 20th that was quite a lengthy item. I don't know how you're going to encapsulate this one, but you did pretty well on the last one. Commissioners directed the Tahoe Douglas District to come back to the commissioners with a plan to permanently grant stormwater, drainage, water service, and road maintenance powers to the Tahoe Douglas District.
Right, and this
Maybe
is...
we should explain what the Tahoe Douglas District is and does first.
We can do that. The Tahoe Douglas District is a general improvement district that was formed up at the lake many years ago to handle wastewater. And they cover a large area, and they actually kind of go around the boundaries of other general improvement districts up there, like Kingsbury, Round Hill. Gosh, there's a whole slew of them up there. And they basically collect the sewage from these different districts and transport it to the Douglas County Sewer Improvement District, which actually does the treatment. In that process, it became evident that the Tahoe Douglas District had the ability to perform some other services, not only within their district, but also under contract service for some of the other districts, such as stormwater maintenance. And I think at one time they were looking at providing them as the operator for some of the water systems that were up there, as opposed to having the county do it. About 4 years ago, their service agreement was amended that would allow them to take on water. And for some reason, I really don't understand yet, and I have to look into that, is that nothing really happened with the water service, and I don't know what the issue was, but the county still maintains those water systems, and the idea of contracting with Tahoe Douglas kind of did not happen. That agreement expires in November, and Tahoe Douglas would still like to continue to look at that approach, and at the same time they'd like to be able to expand, maybe to provide road maintenance and some of the other activities more as a contract service. What has to happen under state law is that any district that takes on a service that they don't currently provide has to do a service plan showing that it's the most economical way to do it, and that's the appropriate way to do it. And we need to have a lot of discussions about that service plan before we can actually take an item before the board to push the contract forward. So I think the way it was left is that the county did not extend it. They were looking at ways to maybe do it for a certain time period, come back to them with a service plan,
Right.
with a 2-year time frame. It was either 1 year or 2 year, and I apologize, I don't remember what it was. That at the end of 1 year or 2 years, that we actually see something in place and then look at a further long-term extension. So it's a complicated issue, particularly because of the way that the state law is structured on how these districts work and what kind of service they can provide. We have to show it's the most economical way to do it. It's to the best of the citizens in the area, and go through a lot of analysis before we can just extend the plan.
So the ball is back in their court to come up with a plan and bring it back to the commissioners.
Yes, and we're going to spend some time working with them because in my mind it makes a lot of sense that if in fact they do have the capability and we need to get that work accomplished, maybe that's the best way to go. On the other hand, is it something that we should look at possible district mergers for certain things? And so it kind of mushrooms into a pretty detailed discussions before we actually come up with a final solution.
Okay. Also, at that meeting, commissioners approved the use of designated reserves in the indigent fund to purchase an ambulance for the East Fork Fire District. That's at a cost of $165,000.
Right. I think first of all, need maybe to explain the indigent fund. It's a fund that's required, and it has its own tax rate. It's required by the state of Nevada to take care of indigent care, medical indigent care. And one of the things we were seeing is that there's a lot of activity that relates to the East Fork Fire Protection District on ambulance calls, transports, those sorts of things. And instead of trying to figure out a chargeback arrangement, it appeared to be that if we could help them through some capital funding, it became a lot less complicated. And one of the things we looked at with them was the purchase of an ambulance that through the indigent care funds. We do build up a reserve in the indigent care fund, but again, it can only be used for these kinds of activities. So it seemed to make sense to help East Fork Fire and also to help the county on its indigent care.
Okay, so there'll be a new ambulance on the road.
Right, actually there'll be two.
Two.
The East Fork Fire is going to buy one itself, and if we can buy two of them at the same time and replace a couple of the older ambulances, from an economic standpoint, that really makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Larry, I want to thank you for sharing all this information about the October meetings of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. That's what we do here on the County Manager's Report. For Larry Werner, Douglas County Manager, I'm Lloyd Higuera, and we'll see you next time on the County Manager's Report.